UIA, Unemployment Agency, I'm calling you to the front of the class again. Part 3. I did call the Unemployment Agency today, and I spoke to someone named Lynn. Lynn actually was very helpful with clearing up the confusion around submitting a waiver for the overpayment. She stated that September 12th was not a hard and fast date, and that date was signifying to people who had active unemployment claims or somebody who may have been applying for a claim that week that they had until the 12th for whatever the reasons are. And that same group could apply the following week. I know, confusing, right? If you need to call, just call. But for the overpayment people, even though that's who the correspondence was addressed to, the waiver is on MIWAM continuously. So if you already submitted your waiver and you didn't put any financial documentation to support your financial hardship, don't create a second waiver. You can only have one waiver per claim. And like me, when I applied or submitted the waiver the first time, it didn't request any financial documentation. However, when I went back on the site, it was a new waiver with the financial documentation fields there, and I submitted it. What you want to do instead of submitting 2 waivers is go back in to your submissions and add the financial documentation so that it'll be connected. Lynn had to connect all my financial documents from the second waiver to the original waiver. All right, so after you have successfully submitted your financial hardship waiver and attached your documents, you want to check back on MIWAM on the determination tab to see if your waiver was approved or they need any extra documentation or whatever the case may be. If by chance, I really hope that this video will help you avoid needing to be on the phone for an hour with these people. However, in the event that you still need to call the unemployment agency to get more clarity on your specific claim, if it's regarding overpayment, I would suggest not following the prompts. I mean, you could try them. Sorry. You can try them out. Well, let me say this. At least this is what I did. I did call back a couple times to see if I can get through using the correct prompts to ask about this waiver and the overpayment. However, it was an automated message saying that it was too many calls and that they weren't taking any calls at the time. So I went through and pressed the prompt as if I was going to create a new claim. Now, when it gave me the opportunity to skip questions, I skipped as many questions as I could because I really wasn't filing the claim. I was wanting to speak to a representative. So once I went through that process, that's when I spoke to Lynn, and she was so helpful, and she, did a great job. She did, admit that the process is very confusing. I told her about my specific frustrations, that it just seemed like they didn't want us to be successful in applying because it was so confusing. You don't know where the form is, you submit it, it's not correct. They didn't have the fields on there properly so you can put your documentation. You're only supposed to have one waiver, yet they generate a second waiver. Then you can't get through the phone lines, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, if it's not done correctly, who's to say if it's going to be approved or if you're going to have to go through the process all over again once you finally realize that nothing was done the right way the first time. So to recap, if you have not submitted a financial hardship waiver, you can do so. You don't have to worry about a deadline. I did have the steps in part 2. If you want to pop on over, it's pinned to the top, and you can see the steps on how to find a waiver because it wasn't straightforward. All of these occurrences made me remember that I actually have the juice. If you really have a gripe or complaint with the unemployment agency that you weren't able to resolve by escalating it through the UIA, I'm gonna drop part 4, child, to highlight who you can reach out to. At least I was able to use these resources, and I was able to get my issue with the unemployment agency resolved. Okay, I'm Janae Porter, owner of Loose Massage Therapy Plus. Thanks so much for tuning in, and follow LMTP for more resources and tips.